Excellencies, ambassadors, presidents, former presidents, ministers, distinguished guests, what a privilege to have you all in this room. My name's Kasia Madeira, if you didn't catch my name earlier on. It's lovely to have you here. We've got a very big topic, not much time, and appreciate that lunch was running a little bit late, so thank you for being back with us. Right, where do we start? Taiwan, Ukraine, nations under threat. Why on earth should we be protecting democracy? Because it certainly doesn't feel like our global leaders, or some of them, aren't. So it's up to us now to thrash it out why we should. Now, I recognize so many of you, but what I want to do is make sure that this is a conversation rather than people giving speeches so that we can really come up with some tangible points. So before we do any of that, we've been really honored to have a message from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. So we're going to hear from her first. Everybody, please listen in.
Thank you to our host and to the brave leaders and parliamentarians gathered here today. We are here to confront a defining question of our time. When democracy is threatened, do democracies act, or do we hesitate until the cost of inaction becomes unbearable? Ukraine and Taiwan are chapters in the same story, a story in which authoritarian regimes test whether borders can be erased by force, whether freedom can be broken by intimidation, and whether the democratic world still has the will to stand together. In Ukraine, we have seen what happens when aggression goes on for far too long. Cities reduced to rubble, children stolen, war crimes committed in plain sight. And yet, we have also seen extraordinary courage, proof that democracy is not weakness, but strength under fire. Taiwan stands at a similar crossroad, is a vibrant democracy, a global economic linchpin, and a living rebuke to the claim that freedom is incompatible with the Chinese culture. Any attempt to isolate, coerce, or invade Taiwan would not be a regional matter. It would be a global catastrophe, economically, strategically, and morally. Let us be clear, deterrence is not provocation, solidarity is not escalation, and standing up for democracy is not interference. It is responsibility. Protecting Ukraine and protecting Taiwan is not about choosing conflict, it's about preventing it. It is about making unmistakably clear that the free world will not reward aggression, normalize repression, or trade away democratic values for temporary stability. Democracy survives when democracies act together, early, decisively, and with moral clarity. That is why this dialogue matters. That is why parliamentary leadership matters. And that is why history will judge not only the aggressors, but those who saw the danger coming and chose whether to meet it. If we fail to protect nations under threat, we invite a world ruled by fear. If we succeed in addressing the threats, we affirm a simple truth. Freedom is worth defending everywhere it is challenged. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Privilege to hear from Nancy Pelosi there. Democracies have to act together. It's not about choosing conflict, but preventing it. Now, I know that we are also joined online by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Oleksandra Matviichuk, who joins us, who, of course, has been fighting for the freedom of Ukraine. I hope we've got comms with her. Oleksandra, is a crowded room. I know you can't see us, but we can very clearly see you, Oleksandra. So we would like to invite you to take the floor, and we are all listening and very eager and keen to hear your words. We're just establishing comms. Oleksandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for providing me a floor, and the warmest greetings from frozen Kiev. It's a fourth winter of large-scale war. When it started, not just Putin, but also all international partners were confident that Ukraine has no potential to resist to such enormous opposing power. I was in Kiev that time, I refused to evacuate, and I remember how international organizations evacuated their personnel, even international humanitarian organizations. But ordinary people remained. And our main lessons learned is that democracy must protect its values. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things. I was in Taiwan last year and I saw a lot of common. Taiwan also faced with a threat by enormous opposing power. Taiwan also shows the democratic alternative to authoritarianism regimes in Asia. And that is why it's become so favorable target for China. And I, in different conversation with people Taiwan, try to convey the main message that we will never compete in resource battle. We have to respond with asymmetric actions and decisions. And one of the core is readiness of society to protect their democratic future. Spirit matters. It means that we have to maintain this spirit and to return ordinary people their agency. I don't know what has to be done to protect such countries under the threats in different parts of the globe, especially in this time when the world order, which is based on UN Charter and international law, is collapsing before our eyes. This system was created past century to prevent wars and mass violence, but now just stalling is reproducing ritualistic movements for obvious reason. Even my smartphone has an expiration date. The system has never been returned. But what I know very confidently that Ukraine finds itself in the epicenter of the event which will shape the world future. And like in situation in Taiwan, this is not just a war between two states. This is a war between two systems, authoritarianism and democracy. This is a global battle for freedom, and freedom has no limitation in national borders. Only spread of freedom make our world safer.
Oleksandra, thank you so much. We hear your words and we are so grateful that you join us from a frozen Kiev, which is every night under bombardment. We appreciate your time. We wish you to stay safe and thank you once again. Can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
It's indeed my great honor to join with you, attend Taiwan Roundtable. Let me get straight to the point. Why does Taiwan matter more to all like-minded countries? Number one, we share common value: freedom, human rights, democracy. According to EIU, Economic Intelligence Union, ranked Taiwan democracy, the whole world democratic index. Taiwan ranked whole world number 12. In Asia, number 1. If you have ever been in Taiwan, you can enjoy our very, very good tea. We have very good black tea, green tea, oolong tea, high mountain tea, bubble tea, even our guarantee and hospitality. However, the best tea in Taiwan is our democracy. In this regard, of course, number one. Number two, from economic point of view, last year, 2025, whole Taiwan's GDP covered around 884 billion US dollar. The whole world ranking number 21. If we compare to the whole European member state, number 1, Germany, number 2, France, number 3, Italy, and then come to Spain, number 5, Italy. Number 6, Poland. Number 7. Number 7 is Taiwan. From the supply chain point of view, whole world, over 90% of the advanced semiconductors nowadays made in Taiwan. Whole world, AI server, over 90% nowadays made in Taiwan. No wonder, no wonder. Taiwan means Taiwan. You know what that means? Taiwan. That means T top. AI, of course, AI. W, wonderful. A, attractive. And nation. Please let me repeat again. Top AI, wonderful, attractive nation. That is Taiwan. Since 5 years, we have so-called new roles in the whole world. In the whole world. Democracy vis-a-vis authoritarianism. Number 1, resilience. Resilience. We got so different kind of resilience experience. Ladies and gentlemen, you know every day we got 2.4 million cyber attacks. Yearly, we got 4,000 fighter jets and 2,500 warships. Cognitive warfare, gray zone tactics, economic coercion, social infiltration, sovereignty intimidation, even military threatening. But at the same time, we build our capacity of so-called resilience. And that is so many, like-minded country, you need that. And you need very, very urgent. The second new role is so-called de-risking. You know, in the past time, the reliance, economic reliance on China, trade volume, especially trade reliance on China over 50%. Last year, just only 30%. In terms of investment, in the past time, over 80%. You know, last year, dramatic drop down to just only 3%. So such kind of de-risking, it is also very, very urgent need by whole European country, and I can say that also so-called like-minded countries. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, we need common action. Look, we have common value, we have common interest, we have common threat, and now we need common action because authoritarian at the moment they are underlying the rule-based international order, and they try to reshape it, no? And they try use their own way what they want. So that is nowadays we should do that. Taiwan, maybe you have never been there. Please allow me explain to you again what means Taiwan. Taiwan means T-A-I-W-A-N. That means traveling around is wonderful and necessary. Sincerely, all of you come to Taiwan. Of course, in this so-called democracy vis-a-vis authoritarian, we are facing different kind of difficulties and challenges. In this regard, I would like to quote the very famous German religious reformer Martin Luther, what he said. Even I know tomorrow the world will go to pieces. Today, I will still plant a small apple tree. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't give up. Just go ahead. And Taiwan, on the one hand, we have very, very strong export. Wonderful import. Beautiful seaport. Excellent airport. But what we still need is your support. Wish all of you have inspiring discussion. And coming year, today is actually New Year Eve. Wish you all of you have a nice Lunar New Year's of horse. Thank you.
Ambassador Dr. Gu, thank you so much. I think we're all booking our holiday to Taiwan. Thank you so much. That was amazing. That was incredible. So the way we're seeing this session work, we've got a number of topics that we want to discuss: protecting democracies, international security structures, and the Organization for the Interparliamentary Support Taiwan Organization. Now, obviously, you all have a lot to say, and we've only got a few hours in which to do it. But I wonder if we could just start with, what I'd like you to do, if there's something that somebody said, raise your hand. Let's have a conversation rather than speeches. This is really important. But we've heard from the ambassador about the resilience, about the weaponry that Taiwan already has. When it comes to the sanctions and incentives that are needed in order to protect Taiwan, I wonder if I could start with you, Ming Chang, president of Hello Taiwan. If you could just outline what it is that you genuinely, that you need immediately, because it sounds like you've got the infrastructure, you've got the weapons, you've got the resilience and the drive. So what does the international community need to do to support you?
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. Hello Taiwan, our mission is to gather more support for Taiwan, and that's our only mission. And we want to start with something more fundamental. A few years ago, our friends from Lithuania had able to open the doorway to name their representative office, Taiwan Representative Office. And I want to thank you, President, for making that, helping us making that initiative. So our organization this year, our major push is that make sure that Lithuania is not standing alone in this particular issue. So we are pushing aggressively, trying to see whether or not we can have other countries, including the United States, to adopt the notion of naming our foreign officers as Taiwan Representative Office. So currently in the United States, it's a bipartisan effort. We already have 2 bills that have been submitted last year, and we will be working very hard with our members to see whether or not we can successfully get our representative offices named correctly as Taiwan Representative Office, because the name currently, it is called Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office, which is not correctly representing what the office is about. It's definitely not about Taipei. It represents 23 million Taiwanese people, and therefore, I think we're going to start with something very basic, very fundamental, something that's very achievable, and it is something that we have pretty much a bipartisan support, because it's not provocative. People ask me, well, by changing this, are we changing to status quo? Well, my argument is the Taiwan, and according to China, Hong Kong and Macau is part of their territory. And for years, that both Hong Kong and Macau have trade representative office in New York, DC. Therefore, there should be not an issue for China to allow Taiwan to have its own representative office. I mean, we are not de facto changing a diplomatic process. It's not the embassy of the Republic of China. We simply want to correctly identify its office represent the people of Taiwan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Just in terms of, we've also got a guest online, so we're going to bring him up as well. But just in terms of who should be providing military protection for Taiwan, and to what extent? Poya Miao, the Taiwanese politician activist, is here.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I am Miao Boya from Taipei City Council. And a short, quick answer to your question. I think the first one who have to pay for defense, of course, no doubt, Taiwanese. We have the responsibility to protect ourselves, to protect our democracy. And all we need is not your total protection. All we need is your support. How to support us? For example, like our government has a proposal to raise the defense budget to 5% of our GDP. Now it's 3%, and we are planning to raise to 5% in this year. But here's the problem. Most of the country of the world wouldn't sell weapons to us besides of the United States. So even we raise the portion of our national defense budget, we still don't know how to gain the weapons we need to protect ourselves in time. Because I believe that everyone knows in 27, that is a very crucial year. So we have to be totally, fully prepared in 26, right? And on the other hand, we need your support for what? For your actual attitude towards China. Because as far as I know, we Taiwanese knows the CCP very well because we are in the front line to combat with CCP for over 77 years this year, right? So as far as we know, the CCP wouldn't believe that your attitude from the Western world is actual because they saw after the Russian and Ukraine war, the Western world still buys the gas from Russia, right? So the CCP, the leadership in CCP would think the Western world wouldn't take very serious attitude toward Taiwan. So the help that we need is that you show your actual attitude. For example, like, I think the first question in the outline is very good question. Which sanctions and incentives are needed to deter Chinese aggression against Taiwan? I would say the best sanction is actual and convincing sanction toward the leadership of the CCP and their families, because the CCP is not a democracy. So the economical sanctions make Chinese people miserable. They don't really care because their power is not from the votes from people. But what they care is if their family can have the residency of the foreign nations, or if their family can get the nationalities from the other nations. So I would say I can feel the actual passion from you to help Taiwan. And all we need is that, first, help us to build our military resilience. We have to train our military. We have to have some defense weapons, the drones and the submarines, and some actual stuff that really helps. And I know that you all have these. We have the budget, and we have to get those weapons in time. And secondly, we need your diplomatic attitudes. That doesn't mean to change the status quo, and that doesn't mean to build a formal diplomatic relationship with Taiwan immediately. No, I just need that your actual attitude towards the leadership of the CCP. Because once if the Xi Jinping believes this is not today, it's not a good day to attack Taiwan, then we will have peace forever. So thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I was just really in support of your suggestion, and I think supporting Taiwan is very crucial at this point. My name is Baby Ruth. I'm a filmmaker from the Philippines. So when we talk about democracy, we don't really begin with policy papers or political theory, but we begin with what happens when the truth is told and when someone's trying to stop it. And in our case, it's China. We represent the faces of millions of Filipinos who probably will never be invited into rooms like this. And our country is often seen at the sidelines of global conversation. But in reality, we sit at the crossroads of shared oceans, trade, routes, food systems, and geopolitical ambition. And like Ukraine and Taiwan, we do not live at the margins of the global system. We live at its pressure points. Our documentary, Food Delivery Fresh from the West Philippine Sea, follows fishermen, naval cooks, and families whose daily lives are shaped by intimidation at sea. They are not activists, they are not politicians, they are people trying to live normally. And in March 2025, the film was scheduled to premiere at a Philippine festival back home. But 48 hours before its supposed premiere, China blocked its screening, and they put economic pressure in all 900 cinemas in the Philippines who dared to screen food delivery. So 3 months later, in our agony, we premiered at Dock Edge in New Zealand. After the screening, the festival received another demand to remove the film, and this time it's from the Chinese embassy in New Zealand. So they warned of consequences to New Zealand's business relation with China. They called our film fake news without watching it. We invited them to attend, but they refused. And yet, despite all this, audience keep on showing up. We did secret screening everywhere. As filmmakers, this taught us something really, really essential. That the battle is not only over territory or maritime disputes. It is over truth and the power of the common people. The coercion does not always begin with troops. It begins with phone calls, economic pressure, and intimidation meant to silence stories before they spread. If this is what happens to a documentary film like ours, imagine what can happen to our common democracy. So when I look at the case study in Taiwan and in Ukraine, I see democracy attacked through this open war. Civilians displaced, food weaponized, democracy tested through constant pressure, disinformation, economic leverage, and exhaustion meant to normalize fear. Different places, different tactics, same system under strain. But together, we are not isolated cases. I'd like to consider the case of Taiwan and the Philippines as early warnings to the world. And to answer the question of this forum, are we going to ever survive this? The planet will survive, but if we don't really unite and use the soft power that we have, and that is one thing that we are not activating, soft power. Taiwan knows how to use it. Philippine humor knows how to use it. Korea has successfully used it. Use it. There is a chance for us to win this cognitive war. The gray areas, the crack in democracy, this is where fascism, used to influence people. Because our works in making sure that democracy will survive takes time. But for them, fascism, it gives power to people who are frustrated. And if we can use soft power and give common people the agency to fight for us, then I think we'll have a chance. That's why, I hope, this could be something that we can look into.
Baby Ruth, thank you so much. And arguably, nobody knows, absolutely, nobody knows better than the Uyghur community, the threat that is out there. We're joined by Russian Ambassador, Uyghur US activist. And seeing as you've got the microphone right next to you, you can really highlight what the threat is. Briefly, if you would, Roshan.
Thank you so much. And again, the Uyghurs are facing full-fledged active genocide by the Chinese Communist government. And I understand personally how the Chinese government is trying to silence our voices and also rewrite the narrative and spreading lies about, while they are whitewashing this genocide, spreading lies about what's going on with the Uyghurs. Personally, myself, because I spoke 7.5 years ago in Washington as an Uyghur American about China's mass detention, forced labor, genocidal policies, outlining fate of my in-laws. My husband sitting here, his entire family went missing, 24 people. My friend Dolkonisa, his 2 brothers are in jail today. His father and the mother both died. The mother is in a concentration camp, that's where she died. And he learned from China's propaganda video that his father passed away. This is what we are facing. And the Chinese government is trying everything they can to not just being threat to the Uyghurs, Tibetans, and the Hong Kongers, and also threatening Taiwan and the Philippines, not just regionally, but threatening the freedom and the democracy of the world. The future of the world is at stake right now. So this is a fight, not just between the CCP, the Chinese Communist government, and us in the several groups here. This is a fight between right and wrong and good and evil. Ukraine, who's behind Ukraine? I mean, who's behind Putin's illegal invasion in Ukraine? China, Xi Jinping. So we all need to support each other and unite our voices. The solidarity is how we will win against this evil regime. Thank you.
Roshan, thank you so much. Absolutely, thank you. I just wonder, Roshan, thank you, that it really brings it home. And we know that the pressures from China, the pressures from the Putin, Kremlin, obviously what is happening with Ukraine. I just wanted to ask you guys, what deterrence do we need? Because obviously sanctions aren't working, diplomatic efforts aren't working, arguably, Baby Ruth, soft power isn't working, your documentaries are being cut and blocked. So nuclear deterrence, is that the direction that we're going to? We're joined by Mykola Volkivsky, the president of the Geneva Center for Diplomacy and Conflict Resolution, who is just here. And we're going to do this awkward thing with the microphone. I just wonder, what deterrence is needed? Because if you're going down the nuclear path, that's the last path you go down.
Thank you so much. Before I begin, I would like to congratulate Your Excellency, President Dalia Grybauskaitė and Emanuelis for the Independence Day of Lithuania today. And of course, for me as Ukrainian, it's absolutely political realism in terms of the categories coming into shows the reality. The problem is just we try to convince and we try to show around the world after some sort of this political statement would try to awaken the world, like last year in Munich Security Conference, or some sort of this, the speakers and discussions which was held in the last 3 weeks in Switzerland. But reality is that Ukraine still continue to try to use a democracy, try to use a diplomacy, but at the same time the people struggle, the critical infrastructures under greatest attack. The people in Kiev has in the apartments like this during this temperature on the winter, minus 20 degrees, have a +5 or 6 points Celsius. And we still continue to believe in diplomacy. That's why tomorrow we will have the next round trilateral negotiations in Switzerland. It's why we try to convince and to have to get support of our allies. If we talk about the nuclear, we do remember since the Revolution of Dignity and the Russian propaganda tried to use these narratives to make this scary of the people around the world to use this. But reality is that it's not working at all. It's not working in terms of to get real approvals, because can we sit on a trilateral table and in a neutral country, it's Switzerland, and negotiate with and to be sincere with someone who killed your child, they killed your nations, and killed the Ukrainians? Of course, it's still difficult, but it comes back to the political realism again. We can't have the support, we can't do that kind of the feelings to share, but otherwise we have the Russia, who don't understand what is democracy is, but they used to study it during their school. They used to study there, but they don't understand what is diplomacy is, but how it's working diplomacy with undiplomatical way. But otherwise, we try to use this. We try to feel it. But if you struggle inside your country, how you can be open and sincere with someone who destroyed you? I was participating in G20, B20 summit in South Africa, one day when the first time shows us Trump's 28 points, which was eliminated, like they changed it to 20 or something like that. Right now, we want to discuss, we want to agree to stop destroyed critical infrastructure, because when the winter, when it's the worst time, when we talk earlier in this lunch with Emanuelis, it's minus 20 degrees. Now, it's not a question to talk about the even theoretical issues. But thanks, we hope, we pray tomorrow in Geneva will show this real diplomacy. But I'm not sure at all, as all of the strongest allies, it will be successful. narrative with nuclear, it's not working at all. Political realism, it's something what we used to understand right now. And maybe you can hear it from these narratives and show the statements by our president. He changed something like that. But we do need to remember this last speech of Zelensky before the full invasion in Munich, when he asked the people who were sitting in the Bayrischerhof Hotel about the open door policy for the NATO. How it's possible to open door policy provided if its door already closed. Thank you so much.
About deterrence. The question was how to deter. I want to say that deterrence in Ukraine failed. NATO was not able to create enough deterrence for Ukraine and for Europe and itself. And then I visited Taiwan some 2 years ago. There I'm about deterrence from China, and I got an answer that there's so much important in the world by producing semiconductors that China will, or US will protect only because of that. I said nonsense, because already we saw started in Ukraine, and Biden's administration was way helping Ukraine to protect itself in the very beginning. And I said, you from the lessons of war in Ukraine. And after Trump, no comment at all. So, about deterrence. Deterrence is not existence at all against dictatorships. Dictators live in their own world. They have no logic, and their world is not as we see it. So, there is no deterrence against them. The only deterrence is real protection and the readiness of all society to defend. And if they will see and believe that you are ready to defend yourself, probably they will not come, or it's also not guaranteed. So why before the war in Ukraine, also the preparation of even the Ukrainian army was not sufficient. Our understanding in NATO and in Europe was absolutely not sufficient. And after the war started in Ukraine, we were waiting for Ukraine to fail and promoting and proposing only the helmets, 5,000 helmets for the battle against Russia. That's how it looked like. And only then we understood that it is the war against us, not against Ukraine. And only small countries as ours, Baltic states, came the first because we were not afraid. We knew that it is an existential threat to us, not only to Ukraine. And we the first came to help. And we have been very irritating example for the West and for US including, because we were giving whatever we able to, and even now, if we're looking GDP by percentage, we are giving the most support to Ukraine than the large countries. But it's about, again, deterrence, and the same for Taiwan. You need to prepare yourself, and not think that you're so important, so unique, that somebody comes and help you. No. The first, you will need to defend yourself, only then maybe help will come. And then you're asking or begging to buy the military equipment, don't beg. You have resources, you have finances, you have people, you have knowledge, and you have creativity. Look to Ukrainians. They create new weapons every day, every week, every month. And there is new war, which absolutely changing under pressure of the Russians and the creativity of Ukrainian nation, the motivation to defend, extraordinary, and they're not able to win. Russia is few times larger than Ukraine, and they're not able to win. You a lot times smaller, but if you will become strong and having motivation to defend yourself and really defend yourself, you will be unbeatable. It's about spirit, about motivation, and about preparedness. There is no deterrence from dictators.
Thank you, Kasia. I know it was a hard day for you, so my congratulations. Well, I would prefer to be more provocative to this honorable table. Democracies can weaken gradually from within, And most probably, unfortunately, we are living this momentum right now. Unfortunately, I think that this world is more pragmatic than democratic. So I'm no one to teach to you, nothing. But I do have my experience of far more than 60 years of life and a lot of political experience. Let's put it like this. Well, all the achievements of Taiwan, explained in a wonderful metaphoric way by the Taiwan ambassador, are pretty good reasons to flourish the jealousy of neighbors, and not only. They're not good reasons to go and have some vacations in Taiwan. On the contrary. I wish I can be an opportunistic person, but I'm not. So my question is, who should provide military protection to Taiwan? And I totally agree with Madam President. First of all, you have to do it yourself and create coalitions with partners, NATO and non. We have to speak about partners like Australia, like Japan, I don't know, like Singapore. And then, of course, our, let's say, our nature relations that we are having, that you are having with NATO and Western countries. But when it comes to Ukraine, well, I had a long discussion in Pentagon in 2014. At that time, I was Minister of Defense, about the annexation of Crimea. And it was not the first lessons, guys. It was the third or the second lessons from Russia. Because Russia did the same with Jordans, which were very active in Afghanistan, by the way. They invaded 1/3 of their territory, and it's gone. We forget to talk about that. And then what happened with the Crimea? We stopped discussions, NATO, Russia, and that's it. And we were pushing Ukraine in building up, rightly, democracy, an internal one, without thinking about the buffer zones. Because this world, it's not only, unfortunately, it's not only a question of democracies. It's a question of being pragmatic. And at the end of the day, it's economy, stupid. So there is a very, very complicated situation right now. What can we do? Even small things. And who is talking to you guys is somebody who took tough decisions to support military and non the Ukrainians, the Taiwanese, and more than that. Even coming from a small country, because you can be small enough, but you can do really, really big things. And we are here not only to talk, but to do big things. I'm optimistic, even being an old lady right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I agree with you that we have to defend by ourselves. So actually, in our legislative yuan, we just opposed a bill that want to buy more arms, buy more weapons from in the USA. But actually, I can share an information recently. The bill, the weapon special budget actually just stopped by the opposition party many times. But recently, yesterday, they just say yes. They agree to accept the special budget from our government. Why? Because yesterday in the U.S., someone says maybe we should just freezing their assets in the U.S. and maybe we have to cancel their visas and their, like Miao Boya says, maybe the CCP and their process, their permanent, how to say that? Residency, yes, like something like that. And yesterday, so the opposite party just say yes, they are willing to accept the special budget. So maybe I think that's some way we can try. Our international partners and other international friends, maybe we can do something more. But I think the military coordination is necessary, and more like we can share more information, like how to protect the critical infrastructures, like the undersea cables. So recently, Taiwan and the recent countries, we are sharing more information about the undersea cables, how to protect our undersea cables without damaging from CCP. So I think there are many things we can do. So we are here to we want more friends can support Taiwan, just like the Jiang Mingxing says, maybe renaming the Taiwan Representative Office is the first step. So economic sanctions and diplomatic sanctions, or more military coordination, many things we can do. Thank you so much.
I think one of the core reasons for dependence on China is that it would be so costly for us to detach from China, and that it would be so costly for us to introduce policies that China can punish us for. So, for example, right now 30% of the German population who are already voting for populist and extremist parties would pretty much say, why the fuck should we care about Taiwan if it will make the goods in our supermarket shelves more costly? So I think actually, and I can return to the very beginning, enabling Taiwan to defend itself is the best thing that we can do. And in my personal opinion, sending weapons is nice, but then you have to send them around the whole globe. I think if we could facilitate the update and growth of the defense industrial base in Taiwan so that Taiwan can actually build the weapons themselves, that would be something way more useful. And we can, of course, give out blueprints, we can send experts. That's pretty easy to do, and that's something that I think would be more annoying to the dictatorships all around the world, especially China, than anything else. Just for comparison, when Rheinmetall announced the possible opening of a Rheinmetall factory in Ukraine, Russia tried to assassinate the CEO of Rheinmetall. So you can really see how annoying that is for them. In general, I think the most important thing in the fight against dictatorship is we have to understand that it's first and foremost an information war. Dictatorships only work because people are kept in the dark, because people are lied to, and it's not enough to coerce them or to deter them, because every dictatorship, every authoritarian regime is a cancer within human civilization that, quite frankly, needs to be eradicated, or it will always threaten the freedom of all other people around the world. I think the fact that China claims and is understood to be the owner of Taiwan, or that Taiwan is part of China, is nothing more than a very sufficient information campaign that has going on for the last decades. You can always claim that that another country or another part of the world is actually part of your territory. There were a lot of parts of Europe that were once Germany, and still we don't go around telling people that it's still ours. So I think we need to, besides helping Taiwan, we need to develop more offensive capabilities in the war on the information. We need bot farms. we need all of that, what Russia and China are doing to destroy our system from within, we need to develop as well and also use against them. Will this lead to a more peaceful world in the short term? I'm afraid not so. But I think right now we have to defend and then build a more peaceful world after we successfully defend it. Thank you.
I guess it seems like, thank you, Lucas. I guess it seems like increasingly individual nations are on their own and that support from the United States isn't there. Let's bring in Yasmin Lee, because you're from the think tank US-Taiwan Watch, and it's fascinating because you're monitoring that relationship with the United States. What have you found?
Thank you, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to highlight, I just wanted to respond to what we discussed earlier. I totally agree that Taiwan, what we are doing right now is that we are adopting this so-called the porcupine tactic. We have to make our own defense system strong enough to make the dictator think that the cost to invade Taiwan is so high, so they wouldn't do it. And we are working on that. We are building our own defense capability, and we are raising our defense budget to more than 3%. We're hoping to raise that to 5%. And we're also doing a military reform right now. And we're also asking, we're not only just building our own military armed companies, we're also asking an American company to build their supply chain inside Taiwan. But earlier, what we mentioned, I want to highlight here that when we want to build our own defense system, the system matters. We need to build a systems that can coordinate smoothly with the U.S. system, because U.S., Japan, the Philippines, when we're facing attacks or the threat from China, we have to share all of the information all together. So the system matters. So the reason why we need the defense support from the U.S. because we need that system, and also other than arms sales, we're also doing our military the drill. Resilience drill in Taiwan. So that's what Taiwan have been doing. And but I also wanted to highlight here, when we're talking about the cost of the invasion, according to Bloomberg, it said it's a 10 trillion fight. It's a 10 trillion fight, and it will take 9.6 more than 10% of the global GDP. And that is more than the impact of COVID or the impact of 2008, the financial crisis in 2008. But what we're seeing right now, what China is doing right now is so-called the gray zone tactic. As Baby Ruth mentioned, they have been weaponizing everything. Their tourists, their economy, everything they are weaponizing. Also, they are cutting undersea cables. They are also crossing the cross-strait. What they have been doing now is trying to exhaust and trying to see what kind of responses Taiwan is going to take and trying to exhaust our system. And so when we talked about the support from the international community, I think that's something that we need to put more focus on. When we talked about the huge war, what China is doing right now, the war is over. It's an ongoing war right now. China is doing this gray zone tactic. And so when it comes to what we can do right now, one thing I think we can do immediately is that, other than changing the names of the representative office, I think one thing we can do in 2021, the European Parliament published the first Taiwan report, the standalone Taiwan report. That is in 2021, before the war in Ukraine and before AI changed our everyday lives. So I think actually it is a good time to have a revision of that report. Maybe we can have a revised version in 2026. And I think that's actually necessary. What kind of measures that we can all do together, what kind of exchanges program that we can work on, like the drone industry, energy industry, critical infrastructure industry, critical minerals, and the rare earth, what can we do together? And I totally agree with Lucas. Thank you for mentioning that information. What can we together in terms of the disinformation campaign? That's something we can all bring it into the EU-Taiwan Political Relations and Cooperation Report in 2026. I think that's something we can do immediately. And I also wanted to mention one thing, is that we need to, I remember last year, Lucas, you mentioned at this forum that because in 2024, German Navy, they have their first passage in 22 years in Taiwan Strait. And you mentioned that maybe next time we can have park in Taiwan. I know it's really hard at this moment, but bringing up this and proposing it in the EU Parliament is actually helping. It's not just helping Taiwan, it's also helping the EU, because I believe in terms of when we're facing this authoritarian attack threats, we need to have more tools. We need to have more countermeasures. And I believe what Lucas mentioned last time is a really, really good countermeasures, that if China, their gray zone tactic is trying to erode the sovereignty of Taiwan. So actually, parking in Taiwan is one of the best countermeasure against the threat from China. So I think we need to be more creative to come up with more countermeasures, for example, like what Lucas mentioned last year, and maybe a 2000 version of the EU reports, the standalone report on Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. I wonder, just on that point that you were making, if we can pass it down to Egils Levits, the former president of Latvia, because as somebody who, like Dalia, you were in power, and Yasmin makes the really good point, sharing information, working together. How easy is it for world leaders to genuinely share that information if there's such a lack of trust?
I think it is, in principle, not very heavy to exchange the information, but it is necessary first to have real information and not to have illusions about the adversary. And I was president in 22 as Russia attacked Ukraine. And I remember the first meetings of NATO, and there was some kind of, I would say, a little bit exaggerating confusion how to react to that. And there were some countries, 3 Baltic countries and Poland, it was very important. So to say, we have tried to explain what is here really. And then, of course, the NATO decided in the right way. But I think I was really surprised about this, some kind of confusion, I would say. But at the end, NATO have adopted the right strategy. And the strategy is deterrence. And deterrence consists of 3 elements. The first element is real investment in military goods. You need tanks and other things, so the hardware. And European Union has decided last year to invest 800 billion euros in military equipment. I think this is a very, very important step for 2 reasons. The first reason is that we will have this military equipment. The second reason is that it is done not by NATO, but by the European Union. And that means this is a development of the European Union from originally only economic union, then also to political, but now also to some kind of defense union. This is the first element. The second element is, we have discussed here a little bit already, is to have political will to use this equipment in the case of attack. And this is exact now the place where cognitional war happens, because Russia will not allow to build such a will. Yes. And there are many, many ways of the informational warfare that, despite the military capacities, the will is weak. And if the will is weak, then the military capacities are not very both. And the third element is to convey this strong political will to the adversary. If the adversary does not know that you are willing, you have the capabilities, and you are willing to defend yourself, then there is false appreciations, like, for example, Russia thought that it would be very easy to conquer Ukraine. And but if the adversary knows that if he will attack, but then he will lose, then he will not attack. That means the real politic of peace is this investment. This costs a lot, but it is necessary for guarding the peace, but also to have a strong will to defend ourselves. And I think Taiwan, in my view, I was recently, last year there, it shows this political will, and also the military equipment is going, also the new investments and so on, and Europe also. But of course, now we have this political question how to convince a majority, or the big majority of our population in Europe, not in our countries, because our countries know that, but in other Western European countries, that if they will keep the peace, then they should be ready for defense. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The will is weak. Actually, let's just benefit from the fact that the microphone is there and then go to the gentleman next to you, because as an MEP, the idea is, okay, you're spending more on defense, but you've got to get your citizens to believe in that. So how do you convince them? And just last week, Pete Hegseth was saying that European leaders aren't leveling up with their citizens, that the threat of war is very real. So how do you do that as somebody who's an elected member of the European Parliament?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot answer this question because in Latvia you don't need to. Like specific actions, we like clearly understand what's going on and what we need to do. Of course, further, and that is the issue that it's soon going to be fourth anniversary of invasion. In these 4 years, we unfortunately don't know what deter dictators, but we deter is from like supporting allies in full scale. And it is dependencies. It is Russia did that with us, with energy. China, now we are running from Russia, switching to China. And fourth year already, we think that we can protect democracy, like always says, like do, but who has to do it? So, and that is the issue. We still don't have a file set that to protect democracies, it's not enough with maybe conferences, but it also can take sweat, dirt, and life without Temu and some good and cheap things in our supermarkets. It has a price, and we are not yet, I think, ready for the biggest thing and the best thing, and what can deter dictatorships or aggressors in the future is the culture. And that's the full reason, basically, Ukraine is playing.
Readiness, Posnax, thank you, Latvian MEP. Let's go down the end of this room. Where's Malcolm Byrne? Hello, sir, welcome. Your point of view, because I know you're talking about Taiwan, the support for Taiwan, transcending NATO, Five Eyes frameworks. We were hearing from the president of Latvia saying that it's difficult to have that trust and sharing information. So you're talking about transcending NATO. How do you do that?
So I think we've got to look at the fact that democracy is under attack. And while we're focusing very much on Ukraine and on Taiwan, you have to remember that all democracies are facing the challenge, particularly of cyber and hybrid warfare. And Lithuania in particular, when it stood up to China, faced particular challenges. But I think every democracy has experienced cyber attacks that are either deliberately orchestrated by or certainly condoned by, and let's call them out, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And it's estimated that up to 40% of the world's cyber attacks are now coming from those countries. So we've got to be realistic in that democracy is at war with some of these authoritarian regimes. I think the challenge, though, for all of us is the interconnectedness of our supply chains. And I mean, I think for Europe, it was quite interesting. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, one of the big issues right across Europe came about the importance of energy independence and about how we needed our own energy security and move away to Russian oil and gas. And for environmental reasons, and it's a big agenda for Europe about the green agenda. So where does Europe focus? Well, let's look at solar energy. And 90% of solar panels coming into the European Union come from China, and there's certainly significant evidence that a lot of them are coming from labor camps, or the materials coming from labor camps in Xinjiang. So I think, and I mean, I know the points Lucas and others were making as well around Europe's soft power shouldn't be underestimated. And I think in our trading relationship, we need to use that a lot more. The European project is around peace and prosperity, and we need to tie both of those categories together. And we need to use that trading power. I do think, I mean, the other interesting sessions that are going on here around artificial intelligence and so on, that's all linked into this discussion, and I won't kind of drag some of that, but the global approach that's going to be taken and the values that will infuse the use of AI and new technologies are going to be critical for democracies. And that's as important for the European Union, for Canada, Australia, but for anybody who has democratic values at their heart.
Malcolm, thank you so much. We are joined, just to say, we've got some incredible filmmakers with us, and we're going to come to you in just a moment because people like Evgeny, Oscar nominated, incredibly talented, who have seen what's going on in real terms. But before we do, let's bring in Michael Carpenter. We can see you in this room full of around 20 presidents, politicians, etc. So it's a really, everybody's, a lot to discuss. So we know, like Malcolm was saying, Michael, that 90% of solar panels come from China. We know, we've heard from a campaigner when it comes to what's happening with the Uyghur community. You're the US permanent representative to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, senior director for Europe on the National Security Council under Obama, and you managed US-EU relations. Arguably now the US has left the EU to go it alone. Are they getting it right?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you. A very distinguished group of guests that you have assembled, so it's an honor for me. Look, I'm afraid that the United States has entered into a new era where our grand strategy has been completely changed. It is now a country that is being led by a government that does not believe in alliances and that does not believe in multilateralism. Now, when it comes to authoritarian regimes like Russia and China, this puts us at a tremendous disadvantage, and it puts our allies at a tremendous disadvantage. Because whether you're talking about collective action against subsidized electric vehicles or solar panels or economic coercion, or whether you're talking about trying to build up deterrence in Taiwan or Ukraine, using the most advanced military capabilities that Western countries have available to them, We are only as strong as the ability that we have to act together. When the United States abdicates its leadership role, when we're not able to take the lead in forming international coalitions to address these challenges, then naturally states tend to act alone and hedge and wonder whether it's appropriate for them to expend the necessary resources to be able to counteract these trends. And this is an open season for authoritarian states like Russia, China, but not just North Korea, Iran, and on down the list. So I'm afraid we're entering into a new world order where collective action, where alliances, where partnerships are being devalued based on this false sense that we are better off if we act in our very narrow self-interest and try to pursue that without the benefit of our allies and partners. Here in the United States, I think this will lead eventually to a course correction. But what it means is that for the time being, a lot of other nations around the world are going to have to step up. We're going to have to see a lot of other coalitions of willing countries stepping up to provide Taiwan with military assistance, stepping up to provide Ukraine with both financial assistance. And here it really is incumbent on the European Union to act decisively and quickly to finally mobilize those frozen Russian assets that are sitting in their jurisdictions. It is just diplomatic and strategic malpractice not to have done this so far.
But they've said no, Michael. Sorry to interrupt, but you've got the EU who says no. We'll just provide a loan. We're not going to use the frozen Russian assets because it could incur their ability to then. They might look weak, and they might not have then people invest in the EU. They're afraid, basically, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's not so much fear. I think it's the fact that some special interests have predominated in this debate. And again, you talk about cognitive warfare. Some of the speakers previously mentioned it. This is an example of it, this notion that somehow the EU cannot make use of these frozen assets because it's going to undermine the credibility of the European market. That is nonsense. And a number of reputable economists have debunked that thesis. Really, this boils down to the Belgian government and more specifically the Euroclear financial organization lobbying against this measure. And it really is short-sighted strategically for the European Union not to do this. Again, it testifies to the fact that we're in this new world order where states are acting based on their very narrow egotistic national interests without thinking about larger collective European security.
Michael, thank you so much. A lot of food for thought. He was talking about there, we're only as strong as our ability to act together. Something that was really lacking at the Munich Security Conference was a figurehead. We had Gavin Newsom, who's one of the few that was saying, the international community needs to push back from the Trump rhetoric, for example. We missed Mark Carney. We obviously he couldn't come because of the tragedy that happened there, but Alexis Brunel-Duceppe, member of the House of Commons of Canada, we were lacking a figurehead.
Of course.
Is he the one?
Yeah, I'm under sanction under Russian and China, so I guess I'm at the right panel. I think not everybody will agree with what I'm going to say, but when you look at the Taiwan and the Ukraine issues and situation, I think we have to look at the other way. We always say we have to protect, we have to save, we have to help, but at the end of the day, those who are at the front line to defend democracy, it's Taiwan and Ukraine. So for me, they are protecting us, they are defending us. And when the person who protects you tells you what he needs to still able to protect you, well, you do like Madame Pelosi said, you don't hesitate, and you do whatever you can to fulfill those needs. So I give you a concrete example. For everybody saw the speech of Mr. Carney in Davos, but I liked it, like everybody, but 3 days before, he was with Xi Jinping shaking hands, and he asked 2 of his MPs to get out of Taiwan because they were on Taiwanese soil. So our words needs to match the actions or the reverse. And a concrete example is that since April, Canada has stabilized a deal with Taiwan, the TCFA, the Trade Cooperation Framework Agreement. And it's about, for example, AI and green energies. And since April 2025, the only thing that is missing is the signatures from both Canadian and Taiwanese representative. So since Mr. Carney, for example, is there, it refused to sign this thing, and Taiwan asked us to sign it. So I'm saying it in a very constructive way. I don't want to take too much time, but maybe sometimes we have to think the other way around to find solution and answer outside of the box. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for your honesty, actually. That's what we need to hear. We've got Garrett Ahern, the Fine Gael spokesperson for Foreign Affairs. Thank you, sir. And you've got the microphone. Fantastic. Just your thoughts on what we should be doing. And while we're all discussing this, I also want you to start thinking about how we organize a organization of the Interparliamentary Support Taiwan Group. The World Forum wants us to think about who's going to manage this initiative, how it works. I know you've all got lots on your plates. But if we could get your thoughts there, Garrett, on what we've been hearing so far, because arguably politicians are, failing us. Can I say that?
Yeah, I think you can say that, as long as it's not just me you're talking about, Cassie. Congratulations on your work today as well. You've had a busy day. As an Irish politician, I find it interesting, the conversation we're having. Like, it's obviously a changing world. And when I speak to constituents at home, it's almost a realization of how lucky we are in Ireland. We've had peace for 25 years, and there's been discussion, or 28 years now, and there's been discussions around the table here about diplomacy and the power of diplomacy. I wouldn't underestimate the power of diplomacy. That's what created peace in Ireland. It was through leadership between the UK government, the Irish government, huge leadership and mediation work from America, from President Clinton. And we were dealing with a terrorist organization, a political group that were affiliated to a terrorist organization, and it was diplomacy that worked there and was achieved. So while I absolutely agree with President Madame in terms of deterrent, and a lot of times these wars could have been foreseen, but nothing has been done from a political sense. It's only once the war started. Then certainly from an EU level, it's what do we do now? Deterrents are really important, and that's what we need to be looking at. From an EU perspective, I think we're seen as vulnerable, and we need to change that narrative. We need to be seen as certainly quicker decision makers, and it's put a real focus on the European Union in particular. In terms of how we need to change our diplomacy, how we need to make decisions quicker, and how we can't rely on what would have been reliable partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get our incredible creatives in, because we've got Evgeny Afanivsky, Oscar-nominated director, producer, co-president of the New Generations films. I mean, Evgeny, are you listening? Are you buying what these politicians are saying?
First of all, I am connected to a lot of dots here, like Madam President said, like the former Minister of Defense said. And also for you, because propaganda is something that I, as a filmmaker, independent filmmaker, have been fighting for a long time. The former Minister of Defense of Ukraine, during the beginning of full-scale invasion, said, Russia attacked Ukraine on 4 different fronts: the earth, the air, cyber, and the media. And for me, as somebody who represents here media, I was trying to be on this front because nobody trying to tell me what to do. I'm an independent filmmaker. And I was trying always to navigate my directions, to document the history, and to be able to educate the world, Kasha. Like you guys doing this in the news, I was trying to give voice to the people, and in the same time to be one of these soldiers of the media front, we can say. Because in today's world, propaganda is a really strong weapon that every dictator using this. I saw it in Syria when I was covering Syria. I saw it in many different countries. In 2016 and then in 2023, I was in the Baltic Republics with one of my movies, Freedom on Fire, the movie that was following Winter on Fire that was Oscar nominated. And I remember how much propaganda was around me and how we were fighting this. And I think going back to Taiwan, to you guys, you need to take in consideration, yes, we're talking about weapon to defense, we're talking about a lot of things, but what about propaganda that today can, in heartbeat, brainwash millions and millions of the minds? And that's a strong weapon, and I think the world needs to find the ways how to counter propaganda in these days. And like you said today, we're not able to do it in a heartbeat, but it's something that needs to be built step by step. And I think we as the filmmakers, and I am applauding to Jakob for keeping cinema for peace and not about profits, but for specifically the purpose of advanced movies that can change the world, bring education to the world, educate people on reality. I think we really need to create this counter machine of the independent filmmakers that are able to bring forward the truth. We are the truth fighters. I see today a brilliant journalist, Natalia, here, who probably will be following after me, but we are fighters there on this media front, and it's important to remember that it's not just about weapon on a field, it's about the weapon of mass destruction that brainwashes people. Today, when I'm back in the United States, I often bring into American people a classical example how democracy is fragile. Alexis just said it's not just about one place. We are suffering democracies everywhere. America in 2020, during the pandemic, witnessed something that was in Ukrainian Maidan in 2013. And I was horrified because step by step I witnessed what I witnessed on Maidan. American people not woke up from that. I'm talking about BLM. Start of BLM was exactly what happens in Ukrainian Maidan. When you're explaining this to American people, they are in fear. Their eyes really in shock. But we somehow allowed this happened in American soil where democracy exists for a long time. And Ukrainians were fighting for their democracy for all these years. So bottom line, we need to create a mechanism that will allow us to stand against the lies that Russia, China, and many other dictators creating. We as the filmmakers, we are there. We are basically trying to help you guys. I know Vanessa Hope did an amazing movie about Taiwan and tried to, till today, advocate through this movie for Taiwan. But it's important that more and more filmmakers will be able to deliver messages, educate the people across the globe, awaken them that they can support their politicians in their decisions, and again, and remind certain things. Somehow, again, somebody said today that America, Biden's administration, not was so fast to help, Madam President said, so fast to help Ukraine. And yes, people forgot about Budapest Memorandum, that America actually asked Ukraine to give away weapon and in exchange promised the security. It's not just America, it's also EU and British government. But again, everybody forgot about this. So I think for us, for filmmakers, and for the journalists like Natalia and others, it's important to deliver these messages to the people who can push the governments to act, and act fast. Not slow, act fast. Natasha.
Natalia, please. Yes, Natalia Gemuniuk.
Yes. So I probably would prove a point why journalism matter, because if you speak about the threat as something general, then of course it's very hard to fight. So for the last year, there were 4 times more civilian casualties last year than during the previous years, 4 times more. And that was a year which was dominated by the headlines of the peace and so-called talks. But there is a very specific reason. It was mainly because of the lack of the air defense. And that's what I'm saying. We defended our civilian lives not because Russia was not striking, but because we have a capability. Of course, Ukrainian is developing homegrown solution, interceptors against the drones which are sent into Ukraine. And by the way, a very important lesson of the last year, why you physically need sometimes some of the defense weapon. Because they are the only system which is capable so far to stop the ballistic missiles is the US-made Patriots. And they have this switch mode which can be switched off by the US or not to be sold. Therefore, still, wherever your partner is, you cannot be dependent on one. But the second part, why it was also possible? Because there were a specific Iranian drone technology which Russia picked up, but it has capable to develop it because those specific drones have today Chinese engines and Chinese components. And I'm speaking just about the last year. And it also has NVIDIA processors and different type of the American processors. And that point is to say why sanctions matter, why we shouldn't have these havens for sanctions, avoiding the sanctions. So point one, defense a weapon, own grown capabilities to defend that, but also stopping the avoiding, make it possible to avoid the sanction. And my point in this particular setting, because sometimes it's very easy to push Ukrainians, for instance, against Gaza and create this competition of the victims, which I strongly deny. I think Ukraine's example and the Gaza for us is a reminding what might have happened to Ukraine if it didn't have its own army and its own state. But now I'll return to Taiwan because a year ago, I was really, really glad that we went to Taiwan with my team and ran there a number of the workshop about the democratic resilience, talking to a lot of people, and I want to prove that the strategy, not today, is perfect strategy. Because the fact that Greenland is not attacked is partially because there was an answer. For Ukraine, every single day, some town or a village is not attacked, not because Russia doesn't want, but because we show that at this specific place today, better not to do that, with some type of the deterrence. And I was also saying what we were speaking with the Taiwanese colleagues, with all our workshop, because I saw a lot of kind of anxiety. And I thought that for Ukraine, the deterrence is in our cooperation between the civil society, government, and the business. We people from human rights and media know how to speak to the politicians, but we understood that so much is today about the money. And I think Taiwan has one huge benefit. It's a rich country. And unless the Taiwanese business is also on board, that would be very hard to build something. And give you another trick, I know there are a lot of Ukrainians, and also Ukrainian military, unfortunately, they still buy some components of China. And by the way, a lot of people don't understand, now I'm writing for the American media mainly, and they usually ask me, about how dependent we are from the American technology. And I said, no, the discussion in the Ukrainian army, the generals, everybody, for the last year is speaking not any longer about the dependency from the US, because it's not any, we know how to deal with that. It's about the dependency from the Chinese components. And Ukrainians are very much aware of that. But the sad news, when I know a particular brigade, when they are trying to reach out somewhere, there are so many Chinese companies in disguise. You think they are Taiwanese, but they happen to be Taiwanese. And when you try to reach some Taiwanese companies, it takes them months to answer. It's also something to deal, but I also want to give a bit of the, not a hope, but to finalize my interaction. A lot of people ask, how do you make people all stand against? And I said it would never happen. I live in part of the Kiev, and unless my house is, destroyed, I'm still kind of not fully ready for that. So I think it's very important to have a part of the society which is ready to fight, a part of the society which is organized, and for Taiwan, I think, which is a benchmark for the global democracy for me, an amazing place. I think it's absolutely critical that there are the projects and the programs to bring their journalists, to bring their international organization and all kind of people, because as soon as if you step a foot on the Taiwanese soil, you know it's an incredible place, you feel it. It's not just something in the news. So I think it's extremely important for this year to have a real presence of a lot of people. And for your answer, you ask about this kind of body which would work. I want to apologize for the Ukrainian state because we do not recognize Taiwan. We should. But I hope and I understand everybody understood why. We're so much dependent on China as well. So I think that there should be the room for the people who, you know, like are not represented as a state. So I think that there should be a bigger room for the role for the civil society leaders, for the business people who are not bounded by the state obligation to be present. Because what I know that a lot of Ukrainians would be ready, and also including the politicians, to be there. But of course they are bounded. So I think that would be my suggestion, to work on Taiwan, but have the people like a lot of us who don't have a formal position, but we will be ready to be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'd love creatives because they really say it as it is. So let's throw some of that back to Eduardo Nakayama, Senator of the Republic of Paraguay, also co-chair of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, IPAC. I mean, Ukraine doesn't even recognize Taiwan. Let me just check. You do recognize. But Ukraine doesn't. It was, you know, just so okay. IPAC working on China. What are the difficulties that you see, given that, you know, China is on the UN Security Council, everything gets blocked?
Which since its foundation in 2020, IPAC has worked to defend freedoms, human rights, and democratic principles in the People's Republic of China. Its authoritarian government, dominated by the single-party regime, the Chinese Communist Party, has been responsible for repeated violations of principles and rights declared universal in the free world governed by the rule of law. For decades, the CCP has increased its influence and expansion worldwide, including in Latin America, allying itself with corrupt governments or those closely tied to international drug trafficking, organized crime, and terrorism, as in the case of the recently captured and transferred to the United States Nicolás Maduro, accused of narco-terrorism and the main regional ally of China, Russia, and Iran in South America. The reconfiguration of the world and the geopolitics today centers on ending the war in Ukraine, pacifying the conflict in the Gaza Strip, and preventing a military escalation in the Taiwan Strait, the last bastion of resistance for freedom against the totalitarianism and voracity of the People's Republic of China. Taiwan is a country that has maintained a sovereign and autonomous government since the end of the Chinese Civil War. It went through periods of dictatorship under martial law, but its people, through their own struggles, succeeded in democratizing and becoming a developed nation, an example in Asia and in the world. Yet, incredibly, it has lost international support as the world has resigned itself to adopting the Chinese Communist Party narrative, preferring pragmatism over principle. In a world that still remembers the division of Germany and even of Berlin right here at the Brandenburg Gate into two absolutely distinct realities, and that accept the division of the Korean Peninsula into two antagonist republics, North and South, how can it fail to understand the threat posed by Chinese expansionism distinguished as the One China policy? The free world must awaken for its long slumber and recognize that geopolitics operates in the realm of reality, with national interest, yes, but also in blocks that defend ways of seeing, thinking, and living in freedom. never under oppression. It is time to act united, firmly supporting democracies like Taiwan, isolating oppressive regimes, and defending the universal principle that unite us.
Thank you so much. Let's benefit from the microphone being next to you because Oleksandra Muraru, also IPAC co-chair and member of the Romanian Parliament. Please.
Yeah, thank you. So for Romania, protecting democracy is not rhetorical, it's existential. We are frontline state of NATO's on eastern flank. We have the largest border with Ukraine, more than 600 kilometers from all the EU and NATO states. We share a border which is the most dangerous place in the world right now. We live with the direct consequences of Russian aggressions. Hybrid war started not now, but with 12 years ago, after the Crimea annexation. Cyber attacks daily, disinformation, and military pressure in the Black Sea region. I remember you that almost weekly drones are violated our airspace. And also, I want to underline that Taiwan and Ukraine are not separated crises. They are two threats of the same strategic contest, whether borders can be changed by force and whether democracies can be coerced through economic dependency and military intimidation. If we want deterrence, we must act before escalation. First, we need pre-legislated sanction packages. Consequences must be automatic, targeting financial system, sovereign assets, high-tech exports, maritime trade, and strategic sectors. Deterrence fails when responses are delayed, and we saw in Ukraine. Second, we must implement coordinated economic de-risking. Europe learned from Russia gas dependency. We must not replicate that vulnerability in semiconductors or critical technologies. And third, we need credible securing signaling. Ambiguity encourages miscalculation. If Taiwan is destabilized, global supply chains collapse. If Ukraine defeated, Europe's security architecture collapses. And I want to also to refer to a specific question regarding the creating of a new interparliamentary alliance for supporting Taiwan. I consider that anything helps Taiwan should be supported without any hesitation. But first of all, we need to find out that the Taiwanese government's version is about this potential initiative. First of all, we need to only do things that help them and us, and not create parallel bodies like the Board of Peace or others to confuse the world. So I have no problem with this body being created, but the ones who have to make decisions are the Taiwanese themselves. In Romania, there is a traditional joke about helping an old woman crossing the street, but she didn't want to. Same here. Then we need to see what IPAC has done so far, and it has done enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right. We've got 3 more people who haven't spoken yet, and we're quite tight on time. So I hope Emanuel Zingiris, member of the Lithuanian Parliament, also General Rapporteur of Human Rights at the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly, has the microphone, yes, in front of him. Excellent.
Yes, that is my fate. When I have a micro, everyone is saying, be short. I would like to say that was great exchanges of view. And we should some feel the reality outside the windows. Outside the windows, not far away, is the time when Schroeder office was here in this hotel. Next, if you remember, and Mr. Schroeder was a member of Gazprom Council. And from our point of view, we are coming from the line of disarmed Europe, disarmed realities to the time of defense. So if you remember the time of Cold War, many peace movements were departments of KGB in Swiss, in France, in every country we have peace movements. Finally, after 1990, we discovered that was the affiliation of the network of Russian agents. We need to formulate clearly that we need to defend democracies and defend them with weapons and to be battle ready. We need to be battle ready in Taiwan. We need to be prepared to be battle ready in Ukraine, supporting Ukrainian army and deterring Ukraine against united front of North Korean armies, Cuban volunteers who are not volunteers but represent Cuban government. In this case, we should be related to the reality to defend democracies. We have no one additional round table. Somebody, our Albanese friend, just Minister of Defense, told us this horrible round table. Why it's Madam Chairman is horrible? Well, we underway to be battle ready, but we have distance to be battle ready. We should cover the distance in huge speed. In the reality, we have people we have to deal with people who are trying to kill us. Who killed Navalny? 2 days ago declared that Mr. Putin killed and poisoned Navalny. Who killed many of Russian leaders like Nemtsov? I was a rapporteur on Navalny, Nemtsov in Council of Europe. It was Mr. Putin. Who is doing these huge disinformation companies against Ukraine? Russia. Who is doing against Taiwan? China. We should be absolutely concrete, clear that we are in the battle. And being General Rapporteur on Human Rights of Council of Europe, I think that we should prepare a package how China will pay if China will invade Taiwan. What is the package of sanctions from our side? Like we prepare sanctions against Russia, we should prepare sanctions and declare to China how China will pay for the future possible invasion to Taiwan. A, B, C, D, every point should be declared to China about that. And on the end, I would like to say that after being in Parliament more like 30 years, and being from the beginning, I would like to announce to you, and especially to Taiwanese both ambassadors, great guys, that we continue to have Taiwanese embassy, like Taiwanese embassy in Lithuania, and be sure those marginal remarks from local prime minister means not so much for us. President and Foreign Affairs Minister declare that we continue and Parliament will be behind. We continue support of Taiwan in the case, and we were very lucky, Madam Chairman, when the European Union declared, after we declare our our recognition of Taiwanese embassy, and China declared boycott and war on us, on Lithuania, European Union immediately declared that they are counteracting against Chinese economical sanctions, and they were actually pointing on World Trade Organization's countermeasuring China. So in this case, we should base on solidarity, supporting everyone who is inside of democratic space. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 2 more filmmakers. We're really, really tight on time. I hate to say this, but Mstislav Chernov, I think you've got the microphone next to you. Is he still here? Tommy Gullikson, you are here? Thank you. Great.
Okay, yeah. So I spent 2 years traveling the world with the Secretary General of NATO, Stoltenberg, during 23 and 24. Been to more than 40 president and prime minister's offices with him. And there are some things that I learned. And I think one of them is that all leaders, we have some present here, are just human beings. And I think it's a very human reaction when faced with a threat that's not directly at your doorstep, is how little can I do and still get away with it? And then that answer changes slowly during a war like the one in Ukraine. And traveling the world with the film, I've encountered a lot of young people in different audiences. And I think there's a gap here, because I've been to very many forums, speaking about deterrence, speaking about weapons, and you take that for granted. But I think a lot of young people, especially in the West, they have a very problematic relationship with weapons. And they don't want to spend money on defense. They want it on education, on opera houses, hospital, And that is, of course, the reasonable thing to do in a society. As I've seen, deterrence is like insurance when I've been talking about NATO, and nobody wants to talk about insurance. It's the most boring thing in the world. And you don't want to pay for insurance, but you still do. Until I made my film, I wasn't that into NATO myself. And I thought that NATO was this great executive organization that and the Secretary General could just use a joystick and control its forces. But then I realized that it's just a forum for decision making. And in the end, leaders will make decisions based on their nation's interest and what the people want. So how do you reach the people? And that's where I think filmmaking and art is really important. And journalists do great work, but we live in a world where information is in abundance. We have too much of it, and it can make us numb and make the world very one-dimensional. While we were making a film about the war in Ukraine, you know, you had the terrible situation in Gaza. Now you have Iran, and then you have Greenland and Venezuela, and you know, it's very hard to care about everything. And that's, I think, it's very important for artists because we have the ability to scale the world for the audience. So you get to understand what is really, truly important. And to me, that is about the thing that has been mentioned a lot today is values, morale. You know, interest shifts a lot. Like Norway, I come from Norway, we share border with Russia, but we do not share values. That's why we're in a defensive alliance with Turkey, which is in the opposite side of Europe. So how will Norwegian parents, why should they send their kids to war for Turkish interests? That is a very important question. So I think storytelling, especially to young people, to understand why some values like solidarity is extremely important, is needed. And the people that you should really have in forums like this is the insurance industry, because they get people, even poor students, to pay their insurance. So they're doing something right, and that is storytelling. So I hope we all can contribute that in the future.
Thank you so much for keeping it so brief. Thank you and apologies. Ming, one sentence from you, and then the microphones. Yeah, if you can get another.
Very quick regarding deterrence. The U.S. House has passed a bill that put heavy economic sanction on China if they have a military incursion to Taiwan. But I don't think it's going far enough. I urge all the parliamentary members that take this message back and urge that the members to pass a resolution or bill that if there any military incursion to Taiwan, maybe a formal declaration of recognition is probably a good deterrence. Thank you.
Puyo, thank you.
Yeah, I'm very much appreciated this roundtable, and I want to clarify that Taiwan, we are dedicated to prepare for ourselves since 27 years ago and 77 years ago. And right now, from global firepower ranking, we are on the 22nd place in the world and are still up ranking. And we can produce our own aircraft, and we are now producing our own submarine. So all we ask is a partnership, is support, not save us or we just lie down there, do nothing, and help you to save us. And why do we say we are offering a partnership? Because 5% of GDP of a defense budget, that means 40 billion per year, 40 billion US dollars per year, we will spend on national defense. So when we talk about defense weapon, we are not asking that it's a gift that you will give us. We will pay for it, either the blueprint or the merchandise. We are very willing to build a partnership. But it's a pity that in the most of country of the world, there are some domestic law that bans you export weapon or export weapon blueprint to Taiwan. So I think maybe you could help us and also help yourself, because we are talking about a supply chain.
Thank you, Puyo. Thank you.
To the peace, we will contribute together. Thank you.
Thank you, Puyo. And just one last sentence from the ambassador, because obviously we need to know how you want this organization to work. If we could just bring the microphone over, and then we are finishing because we've all got other commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. As you know, my name is Gu, not good, but I do believe today we have very good discussion. Number one. Number two, even we got some different kind of threats, gray zone tactic, and N, but last year our economic growth surpassed 7%. So that is a so-called Taiwan experience, and we would like to share. Today we don't have just only talk about Taiwan, we talk about also how could democratic country, like mighty country, we can stand together, number one. And number two, how could we sharing each other? Number three, how could we support each other? So that is nowadays we need it, and you also need it. Last but not least, even we have so-called struggle between democracy and autocracy, between democracy and so-called authoritarianism. You know, I would like use the former American president. He said, Obama, yes, we can. And yes, we can make democracy great again. In this regard, to your question, all support to Taiwan, of course, we will be very appreciate, but let me honest to speak, I'm just only representative here for Germany. I'm not a representative for IPEC or the iPad. But anyway, thank you for your support. Let me applause for our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you also. And we close this session. You've been invaluable, your contributions. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you.